Hello guys, welcome to LawPutra YouTube channel. I am Bhavna here. Today we are gonna discussing about the topic, the difference between registered trade union and recognized trade union. Let's get into the topic. Before seeing the differences between them, let's know what is what. The meaning of trade union and what is recognized trade union and what is registered trade union. Okay, let's see what is trade union. Trade unions are basically an association of employees who share common goals to achieve. It's an association of employees who share common goals to achieve. Under the Trade Union Act 1926, Section 2H defines trade union. Any combination, whether temporary or permanent, formed primarily for the purpose of regulating the relations between workman and the employer, employer and the workman, and workman and the workman, or between employer and the employer, or for imposing restrictive conditions on the conduct of any trade or business, and includes any federation of two or more trade unions. Okay, this is a definition given in Trade Union Act 1926 under Section 2H. Let's see what is registered trade unions and what is recognized trade unions. Chapter 2 of Trade Union Act 1926 defines or deals with the provisions relating to the registration of trade unions. Section 3 to 14 deals with the registration of trade unions. Okay, and registered trade unions have a legal status when compared to the recognized trade unions. Okay, now let's see what is recognized trade union. Any trade union is said to be recognized once an employer has adopted to negotiate with it on pay and working conditions on behalf of a particular group of workers. Means a particular group of workers formed as an association, and it is recognized by the employer. And recognition may be voluntary or statutory. It may be voluntary or statutory. As now we know about what is a trade union and what is recognized trade union and what is registered trade union. Now let's see the difference between registered trade union and recognized trade union. Okay, let's move into this. Firstly, registered trade union has several advantages, whereas recognized trade union has less advantages compared to registered trade union. Okay, moving to the second point, it is a juristic person, which is registered trade union is a juristic person. Juristic person means it has a legal rights. Okay, where recognized trade union is not a juristic person. Third point, registered trade union can sue or sued in its own name, whereas recognized trade union cannot sue or sued in its own name, where there should be a person allotted to it. Fourth point, registered trade union has a perpetual succession, whereas recognized trade union doesn't have a perpetual succession. Registered trade unions can be affiliated to any national or international union federations, whereas recognized trade unions cannot be affiliated to any national or international federations. Sixth point, registered trade unions can acquire properties on its own name, whereas recognized trade unions cannot acquire properties on its own name. Okay, moving on to the seventh point. Seventh point in registered trade union says about it can contract on its own name, which means registered trade unions can contract with on its own name, whereas recognized trade unions cannot contract on its own name. Eighth point, in registered trade unions, the employers come forward for discussions and collective bargaining with the executive of registered trade unions. In the registered trade unions, the employers come forward for discussions of and collective bargaining with executives of registered trade unions. Registered trade unions has employers' active participation, whereas in recognized trade union, the employers do not come forward for discussions and collective bargaining with the executive of any unregistered trade union, as it has no legal right. As we discussed, registered trade union has a legal rights when compared to the recognized trade unions. Ninth point, proper accounting, auditing and submission of returns within the prescribed time, etc. are compulsory with the registered trade unions. Means proper accounting, auditing and submission of returns within the prescribed time, etc. are compulsory in registered trade union, where these are not compulsory in recognized trade unions, as there is no legal status for recognized trade unions. 10th point, immunities from the criminal liability and civil liabilities under section 17 and 18 are provided only to registered trade unions. Okay, immunities from the criminal liabilities and civil liabilities under section 17 and 18 of Trade Union Act 1926 are provided only to the registered trade unions, and these immunities are not provided to the recognized trade unions. Okay, moving to the last point, 11th point, the general fund and civic and political fund can be maintained by a registered trade union. Means funds can be maintained by a registered trade unions, and this general fund, civic fund and political fund cannot be maintained by a recognized trade unions. As we discussed the differences between registered trade union and recognized trade union, let's once more discuss the important differences between registered trade union and recognized trade union. Registered trade union has several advantages where compared to the recognized trade union. Registered trade union is a juristic person, whereas recognized trade union is not a juristic person. Registered trade union can sue or sued on its own name, whereas recognized trade union cannot sue on its own name. And fourth point, it has a registered trade union has a perpetual succession, whereas recognized trade union doesn't have a perpetual succession. And registered trade union can be affiliated to any national or international union federation, whereas recognized trade union doesn't affiliated to any national or international federations. And sixth point, it can acquire, registered trade union can acquire properties on its own name, whereas recognized trade union cannot acquire properties on its own name. And seventh point, proper accounting, auditing and submission of returns within the prescribed time are compulsory to registered trade union, and this submission of accounting and auditions are not compulsory in recognized trade unions. And it can contracts on its own name, and registered trade union can make contracts on its own name, and recognized trade union cannot make contracts on its own name. And immunities are provided to the registered trade union under section 17 and 18, and these are not provided to the recognized trade union. These are the important differences between registered trade union and recognized trade union. Okay, hope you all clear with it. Let's simplify these differences within a single line. The difference between registered trade union and recognized state trade unions are the benefit provided for the registered trade union which cannot avail by the recognized trade unions, as registered trade unions has a legal status where recognized trade unions doesn't have a legal status, as they are not registered under section 3 to 14 under Trade Union Act 1926. So this is a single line definition or differences between trade union, registered trade union and recognized trade union. Hope you all clear with it. If you have any queries, please leave it in the comment section. If you like the video, please do like, share, comment and subscribe to LawPutra YouTube channel. Thank you.